I went through an absolute identity crisis when I realized that what I was experiencing was OCD. The societal understanding of OCD is nothing like how my particular flavor of OCD manifests. So it was confusing and it was devastating. It is also what makes having this disorder so incredibly lonely. I don't think I've ever felt as isolated in my life as I did keeping what I just thought were secrets. Josh is the name that I've given my OCD brain, which has been a really helpful tool. A little intro, Josh works in finance. He's not someone that I would normally spend any time with at all.
All right.
But unfortunately, he is my roommate for life, so we've learned how to tolerate each other. So truly nothing phases me anymore. Nothing. Yeah. The weirder, the better. The more f***ed up, the better. Because I really don't believe that our thoughts are any of our business. Like, the content of our thoughts don't mean anything.
If you've liked the things that you've seen on the Get to Know OCD podcast and you want to know more about OCD, you can go to NOCD.com. We have tons of education. You can go to our NOCD YouTube channel and watch our webinars and other episodes of the podcast. And we hope that you will take advantage of everything that we have available to you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Get to Know OCD podcast. My name is Patrick McGrath. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for NOCD. If you're looking for help for OCD or related conditions, check us out at NOCD.com. That's NOCD.com. And if you like what we've done here for the Get to Know OCD podcast, you can subscribe to the NOCD YouTube channel or anywhere where you may get your favorite podcast. Today, I am joined by Haley Jakobson. Hi, Haley. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm really excited to talk to you today because you have really approached OCD with openness and determination to help dispel stigma and let people know about what sometimes people don't know is OCD, right? Not what the media portrays of it, but what OCD really is to so many people about more intrusive types of thoughts that may be around harm or things that people might find taboo or disturbing. So I want to give you a moment to introduce yourself and then really jump in. But I just wanted to start with that little thank you because I really appreciate when people are open and honest about what they're dealing with and help to educate the community.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I'm just having a little bit of a wow moment thinking back to the beginning of my recovery journey and starting ERP. And there is just no way that I could have imagined myself doing something like this back then. And I just want to open this podcast by saying that because I know inevitably there are going to be listeners who really truly believe that they could never share or discuss what goes on in their heads. And I just want to put that reminder out right at the beginning that I've been there and here I am 5 years later and I'm going to spill my guts today, just like I do online every day. But yes, so my name's Haley. My pronouns are she, her. I am a queer writer. I live in Brooklyn, and I have been a writer on the internet for such a long time. And in the past 4 years, I've made my journey into being a published novelist, and I'm working on my second book right now. My first novel is called Old Enough, and my second novel, which comes out next year, is called CAVEGIRL, and it's actually about a woman living with undiagnosed OCD.
If only you knew something about that, that would be wonderful, right?
Yeah, it's really crazy. I just was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I can't read it, but I'll do it.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Well, you've been a person living with undiagnosed OCD, a person who's been through more of a general therapy experience for years and didn't get better, and dealt with the frustrations of probably people providing you things like safety behaviors and just don't think about it or picture a stop sign in your head or snap a rubber band on your wrist or things like that. Yeah. Can you tell people about that journey and what it was like finally moving from that and finding evidence-based treatments?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm 31 now, and I started therapy when I was 19. And my first therapist was incredible, and she helped me through so many things that were really present and top of mind. My relationship with my family and my parents, what I was going through as a young person dealing with depression, uncovering sort of truths about being a survivor of sexual assault. It was incredibly helpful work. But beneath that, there was always something going on that I felt like I could never touch and I could never share. And all I knew about it was that it was connected to deep, deep fear.
Hmm.
And this fear made it so that I really couldn't share the thoughts that were coming into my head. Um, and I always just stamped it down, and I pushed it away for my whole life until it inevitably came to be too much. The first go around where it came to be too much was when I experienced um, what I like to call spirituality OCD. And other people, might call it scrupulosity OCD, but
Hmm.
it wasn't particularly of the religious variety. It was really connected to um, wellness culture and yoga and a little bit of Buddhism
Okay.
and flavors like that. And I started to go through what I believed was like this spiritual awakening,
Hmm.
which actually led me into a full blown psychosis. And at the time, the way that it was dealt with was as, a mental health break, an episode. I was treated with medication, which really did help me, but we never quite named it as what it was, which was my first real OCD um, event. And after I was medicated, I was able to push all of that down and sort of run as far away from it as I could until COVID hit. And I was alone with my thoughts for the first time in a long time. And a new theme started to sprout up, which was sexual orientation OCD and relationship OCD as I
Hmm.
entered the most serious relationship I'd ever been in.
Hmm.
And I had the same therapist the whole time. But for the first time in our relationship, she truly could not help me with what I was going through when it came to my sexual orientation OCD and my relationship OCD, which of course I had no idea that those things were even things at the time.
Sure.
I just
Sure.
was living in a state of nonstop rumination, and it was taking over my entire life. And I was in so much pain. And so I went on a reassurance seeking bender on what I like to call the devil's handbook, which is Reddit. And I spent a gazillion hours of my life on Reddit,
Hmm.
and making myself sick over my ruminations and my compulsions. And it was on one of those benders that I found one strange YouTube video
Okay.
about relationship OCD. And it was like this massive light bulb moment. And I
Hmm.
immediately took it to my therapist, and I was sobbing. And I was like, this is what I've been trying to explain to you. And she just looked at me and she said, I'm so sorry. I totally missed this. And we realized fairly quickly after that that she was out of this was out of her wheelhouse.
Sure.
And I stopped talk therapy, and I finally pursued ERP.
What was it like then finding the treatment that was necessary to help you through these experiences?
Oh, it was so many things. I feel like I went through an absolute identity crisis when I realized that what I was experiencing was OCD.
Hmm.
The societal understanding of OCD is nothing like how my particular flavor of OCD manifests. So it was confusing and it was devastating that I had been actively, you know, exploring ways to help me through mental illness and just had no idea that this kind of therapy would be what would serve me best. Essentially 10 years of my life before I got a proper diagnosis. And the therapy itself is terrifying. I mean, ERP is so crazy and bizarre, but nothing is scarier than OCD itself. So
Right. Right.
I was willing and I was open because I was beside myself. I was so sick.
Hmm.
And my ERP therapist, her name is Jessica. She's just saved my life. She just, I mean, I can't believe the transformation that I've experienced in the past 5 years. And I owe so much of that to her and how brilliant she is. And we just hit the ground running. I mean, we
Sure.
jumped into exposures fast because I needed to. I was so ill that we just had to start immediately. And we did. And of course, we started small in the hierarchy, but we ramped up fairly quickly. So
Hmm.
she had me doing some things that I never thought I could say publicly, but I actually can now. So if you want to ask me about them later, you can.
Yeah. I do love one of your quotes. You could spill every weird or effed up thought and it wouldn't even lead you to blink an eye at this point, right?
Right. And that's because ERP therapists are so amazing about removing any iota of shame from
Yeah.
their their practice.
Yeah.
And I love when an ERP therapist will be like, "Oh, try me, let's see if this thought is
Yeah.
the one that finally makes me, quit my job." I love
Yeah.
when they
I'm
like,
done. That's it.
yeah,
I'm done.
that's it,
Yeah.
it's off
Yeah.
to the hospital you go,
Hmm.
calling the police right now. Like, I love the humor that ERP therapists are able to bring in to the therapy modality, because that is OCD's kryptonite. And
Yeah.
it's just as absolutely fucked up this therapy is. And it's not, you know what I mean? Like, it just
Yeah.
seems so counterintuitive to what could possibly help a person with OCD.
Right.
It's so funny and it's so strange, and um it's a it is a truly beautiful relationship that I've been able to develop with her. And also, I've been in a group therapy for OCD
Oh,
for
good. Yeah.
about 4 years as well.
I love how you say the counterintuitiveness because in all the years prior to ERP, I'm going to bet everyone told you to try not to think of every intrusive thought you had. And did that ever help you at all?
It absolutely never helped, and if anything, it made me so much more sick, because I just thought, what is wrong with me if everybody else is able to do this? And that was also why I latched on to spirituality and wellness culture so hard,
Hmm.
because the thing that is preached to you over and over again is the idea that mindfulness equals removing all of your thoughts. This idea of watch your thoughts like clouds going across the sky. When for me, my thought hits one end of my skull and ricochets right back to the other side, and over and over and over again.
Hmm.
It's a boomerang. And that's because that's how OCD brain is.
Yeah.
And this is the moment that I would like to introduce the name of my OCD brain, which is
Oh, but
Josh. Josh is the name that I've given my OCD brain, which has been a
okay.
really helpful tool. Uh, a little intro: Josh works in finance. He's not someone that I would normally spend any time with at all,
All right.
but unfortunately, he is my roommate for life, so we've learned how to tolerate each other. So Josh makes it so, well, he would like that my thoughts play on an endless loop for the rest of
Sure.
eternity. And sitting down to meditate way back when was, it was excruciating for me because I just
Mhm.
felt so alone. And I would, as a compulsion, I would seek reassurance from everybody around me who was in sort of the yoga world and be like, well, but what do you mean when you say watch your thoughts like clouds across the sky? And did you really have no thoughts during that meditation? And I was just, clawing at myself and desperate for somebody to teach me how to do it right. Um, when I couldn't. And it's actually really interesting to me that mindfulness is such a big part of ERP and ACT therapy because it is something that eventually helped me so, so much. But without all of the information about why mindfulness would be hard for someone like me,
Yeah.
it just resulted in me experiencing way more pain.
I say to everyone I'm working with that if we were in person at the top of a staircase, I would contemplate throwing you down the stairs right now.
Yeah.
And the reason is I've treated so many people who are afraid of what if I were to throw someone down the stairs that I can no longer take stairs without contemplating the death of everybody on a staircase that I'm on.
Mhm.
And I ask people, would you be afraid to be on a staircase with me? And people with OCD always say no, and people without OCD usually say, yeah, I kind of would, right? Where so isn't it interesting that people with OCD are so much more accepting of everyone else's intrusive thoughts than people who don't have OCD?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Truly nothing phases me anymore.
Yeah.
Nothing. The weirder, the better. The more fucked up, the better. Because I really don't believe that our thoughts are any of our business. Like the
Right.
content of our thoughts don't mean anything. They don't matter. Of course, you know, talk to me in a few weeks from now when I'm going through a spiral, and
Yeah.
then I'll
Right.
tell you that actually my thoughts are the most important thoughts in the world,
Yes. You're
and I
special.
have
Yes.
a
Yeah.
direct line to God, and I know more than anybody else knows. So, but
Yeah.
yes, if it's another person,
Mm-hmm.
babe, tell me
Mm-hmm.
about that rumination. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear about it.
Josh is very convincing, isn't he? That he is
Oh
the most
God,
important thing in the whole world, right?
yeah, he
Mm-hmm.
really is.
And I appreciate your mentioning of humor. It's one of the reasons I love doing ERP because if I can pull the carpet out from underneath OCD and if I can tease it and make fun of it and show it how ridiculous it is, that's great. And I always let people I know I'm working with, I'm never going to make fun of you, but I'm going to be relentlessly terrible to your OCD. And when people start to realize that OCD actually has no power over them unless they give it power,
Yes.
it's an amazing light bulb moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and humor is for me, the thing that does it most. And I'm really fortunate to have friends and a partner, and just people in my life who wanted to know how to help me. And so I've taught them all about the humor element in the therapy that I do. And so they they will give me the hardest time in the best way because they know how to egg me on and egg the thoughts on. And Josh hates when I laugh at it. Josh
Sure.
does not want to make fun or poke fun at my thoughts at all. But that's when I get my wise mind back, when I'm
Mm-hmm.
able to be like, oh fuck, that is funny. you
Mm-hmm.
know um it's, yeah, it's a tremendous thing.
So your book coming out is about someone living with OCD? I'm assuming there's a lot of your life or experience, at least, that's going into that. I'd be interested in hearing about it and how you're approaching the writing for that.
Yeah, it's actually it's a really interesting journey to have OCD and then try to write OCD. And then Josh has a lot of ideas about how I'm writing OCD wrong. So
Oh,
there's like
yes,
this
of course.
there's this really like
Yeah.
bizarre meta thing happening where like
Hmm.
I have a little flavor of just right OCD that is coming out when I try to get the disorder right on
Yeah.
the page. And so it's really it's a really interesting challenge as a writer. I think I'm at a point in my life where I can take on this challenge. This would have, you know, absolutely wrecked me years ago.
Sure.
But now I am able to sort of tolerate the discomfort of potentially getting it all wrong, as if OCD is a monolith and I need to make it perfect for each and every person who has it, diagnosed or not. Um, it is definitely based on my experience with my spirituality OCD, which, you know, manifested as scrupulosity, morals, ethics, just all of that good terrible stuff was wrapped up in this. And um when I experienced psychosis with that theme, um I did believe that I was going to have to go live in a cave like the Buddha.
Hmm.
And um, as silly or strange as that sounds, I believed that with all of me. Or Josh did, but I was so fused with Josh that there was absolutely no separation.
Yeah.
And that is why my book is called Cave Girl.
Oh,
Um,
well, there you go. Hmm.
and so it's a journey of a character who's 23, experiencing a lot of grief around the loss of her grandmother, who's nannying this little girl who, you know, absolutely wishes that she was with her mom and not with this 23-year-old nanny. And I think all of my books have an essential question, and I think the essential question of this one is, how and why do we choose to get better?
Hmm.
And I'm very much in the exploration process. I'm very lucky to have an editor at Penguin Random House who's letting me just pull it apart and put it back together, and then we'll edit it together
Yeah.
later. But a really interesting thing that is happening with this book, because I wasn't in ERP therapy during this massive episode when I was 23, I'm now going back with Jessica, my ERP therapist, and we're almost like treating it retroactively.
Mm-hmm.
And I will read her sections of my book and say, okay, so what is this part to you? What? And she'll be like, oh, that's the morality OCD coming
Yeah.
out. And there's the scrupulosity OCD coming out. Oh, there's the psychosis that would be treated differently, that we would be sending you to inpatient kind of things, like. And it's amazing, and it's a very like strange and collaborative experience with a therapist. And at the same time, I find it very emotional because I really wish I had her back then,
Yeah.
because I was in so much pain. And so it's a really special experience writing this book, and it's really different than writing my first novel.
Sure.
And at the same time, I'm holding a lot of discomfort and some intrusive thoughts around getting it right, or if it's even interesting, or if I'm making any sense. Um, and that's okay. That maybe I'm not making any sense, and maybe I'm getting OCD wrong, and but like, is the value is to try. So
Yeah. I think the number of books published under the direction of OCD is zero.
Yeah,
Because they're never quite done, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. They're just never published. There's always one more what if question. And that's a question I love to ask everyone. How much of your life has been spent in the phrase what if?
Oh, way more than I wish.
Hmm.
A lot. I think, having puro and having a brain that wants to spend a lot of time ruminating. I do think of the sort of countless hours of my life that I have spent just under the sort of the grips of my OCD telling me you need to plan for every possibility. And I was not present for
Yeah.
the majority of my life. And what's more, I really didn't understand the concept of being present. When people would talk about it, it didn't make any sense to me. How could you be present? How could you not be thinking about what's next and what's going to happen? And it really isn't until now that I've been able to find anything like presence. But presence for someone with OCD is always bringing OCD with you. That chatter
Yeah.
is always there, and yet you do the thing you want to do. But like Josh and I are linked arm in arm, right? Like
Sure.
he's next to me on the couch. I'm having a wonderful present conversation with my best friend, but Josh is there and he has things to say. It's now I have the tools to turn the volume down.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And I like how you talked about from that puro experience, what we talk about is really experiencing a lot of mental compulsions. And I think that's much more difficult for a lot of people to understand because the media portrayal of OCD is usually washing your hands,
Yeah,
straightening things, or checking the
yeah,
locks.
yeah.
Can you, for our listeners, describe more of what it's like to live in a mental compulsive state?
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things that I learned about OCD is that it's ego dystonic, meaning that it attaches to the things that we value most in life.
Yep.
So, depending on the theme that it attaches to, what ends up happening is that our brains become filled with obsessive thinking about that particular topic or theme. So,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who adores children and perhaps has great hopes of being a parent because they value that relationship so much, that might manifest as pedophilia OCD or POCD.
Right.
And it becomes this terrible endless uh, chatter about whether or not they might be a pedophile. And again, remembering it's ego dystonic, it attaches to the things that we value, but it's the opposite value.
Right.
So
Flips it around,
it
doesn't it?
flips
Yeah.
it around.
Mm-hmm.
For me, being a queer woman, I'm bisexual, I'm very proud of my identity. It's a very fluid, flexible, malleable thing to be a bisexual woman. OCD does not like fluidity or flexibility.
No, no, no. We
And
we
so
like all or nothing
we
only.
like all or
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah,
We like black and white. We like binary. But
yeah.
I'm not a lesbian. I'm not gay and I'm not straight. I am bisexual. And so OCD said, well, you really care about that thing? Now let's have endless conversations about whether or not you are lying about your sexuality, whether or not you are straight or gay. And let's just berate ourselves to death with an endless rumination. And so
Mm-hmm.
all of these things are happening in the mind. They are not showing up as physical compulsions. The body is still experiencing the horrible effect of those endless ruminations. You might, your nervous system is fried. You might be very, very stiff. You might have sweaty hands. The body will show the signs of incredible distress, but it's not taking pictures of your stove being off and checking it 500 times throughout the day. It just shows up really differently and in a way that is invisible to most people. But it is so taxing, and especially when those themes are around taboo subjects like sexuality, like harm, suicidality, pedophilia, um, attraction to animals, whatever it is, the shame component is so debilitating as well. So I really
Yeah.
think it's like a comorbidity where it's, yes, it's the theme and and then it's the shame around the theme.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't want to diminish the debilitating nature of someone experiencing contamination OCD.
Of course. Of
Of
course.
course.
Mhm.
And yet there is a special variety of shame that comes from having a theme that is so vilified in our society.
I'm glad you said shame too, because our diagnostic DSM-5, the book we use for diagnosis
Yeah,
definition of OCD, only mentions distress and anxiety, but it's so much more than that. It's shame, it's guilt, it's disgust, it's any unwanted feeling or emotion. OCD will grab onto any of them as a way to get someone motivated to do a compulsion.
absolutely. Yes, it's such a driving force. And it is also what makes having this disorder so incredibly lonely. Um, I don't think I've ever felt as isolated in my life as I did keeping what I just thought were secrets.
Yeah.
For me, the language I had for OCD until I understood that I had a disorder was that I had big secrets, big, scary secrets that I would never, ever say out loud to anyone.
Sure.
And, you know, I I have changed my stance on
Yeah.
that.
I've often said I could put two people together, one with OCD and one who's a scriptwriter for horror films, and they could both have the exact same thought or image or urge. And one wants to
Absolutely.
hide in the corner and the other makes $1 million for it.
Oh my God, that's brilliant. Yeah, yeah. I know. It is the scariest haunted house. You could really make a lot of money from
Hmm.
that production. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is kind of a societal experience where we almost feel like there's thought police and that there are
Yeah.
thoughts or images, urges we just shouldn't
Oh
have.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And boy, OCD loves the should word for
Yeah.
sure.
And I think that's another component of Puro that people don't understand is that the intrusive thoughts show up as visuals or even
Hmm.
movies in your head, you know.
Hmm.
Um, for me, the first year that I was really unpacking my sexual orientation OCD, I was having really vivid, intrusive images of penises just all the time. Just all of a sudden, I would have these vivid flashes. And I thought that couldn't possibly be OCD. That doesn't make any sense, you
Yeah.
know? And then, talking to my therapist, I learned absolutely that's OCD.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Same with the dreams that I was having. I mean, my uh, Josh loves to put on the most dramatic episode of potential doom, my absolute downfall when I'm sleeping. It's
Yeah.
really restorative, actually. Like I wake up feeling amazing. I wake
Thanks,
up
Josh. Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. Well, and then yes, I mean OCD only knows how to punish, so you should be punished for your dreams. You're
Yeah,
not only are you responsible for the thoughts and things and images and urges when you're awake, but you're even responsible for
also.
them when
Yeah,
you are asleep
yeah,
as well. And yeah.
yeah. And that component, the dream component, that was a really hard thing for me to believe that that could be OCD because I had this understanding of dreams, that dreams really mean something, and that they're our subconscious, and when our subconscious tells us something, we need to listen to it. And I gripped that for so long, and then, my exposure therapy around dreams is just, waking up being like, oh, interesting,
That was a
and
good one. Yeah.
yeah, that was a good one. Nice one,
Hmm.
Josh. And
Yeah.
going on with my day. And that, oh, I mean, that instead of replaying the dream all day long, which is what I used to do, and feeling so guilty looking over at my partner at the breakfast table when I had this dream of cheating and having crazy sex in a bathroom somewhere disgusting, just being like, oh yeah, I remember that dream. Huh,
Hmm.
interesting. Can you please pass the coffee pot?
Yeah. Yeah. When Josh doesn't win, I bet there's some frustration still to this day, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
It is really tough. It's exhausting. Oftentimes when I seek reassurance and I'm denied it by my loved ones, which again, teaching.
Congratulations, loved ones. Nice job. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, they're incredible. I feel a very childlike sensation of frustration, of just like,
Hmm.
I kind of want to throw a fit. I kind of want to throw a tantrum because I'm I've I've been blocked from the thing that makes the most sense at that moment, which is, let's talk it to death. Let's pull it apart. Let's get in there. And when I just can't, sitting with that and tolerating that, it's very vulnerable. It's very tiring. And I think what it does more than anything, it's a very revealing moment to me where I'm like, oh, we got we went down that path again. Okay, here it is. And sitting with that is it's hard. It doesn't stop being hard.
Right. But I think it's good to discuss because sometimes people come in and they'll start off a therapy session with, so I can be cured of this and I'll never have this thought or image or urge
Right.
again, right? And I say, no,
Sorry,
that's
babe. Not gonna happen.
exactly not really the goal of treatment.
No.
Is to never have a thought or image or urge. I missed that class in graduate school, so I don't know how to do that. Uh, I should go back and retake that one maybe,
Yeah.
or it's just not the way that it works, and we still haven't figured out how to never think of something that we don't want to think about.
Right. Right. And that's why I love to talk about OCD therapy as recovery, because I do think in some ways it's similar to folks who have addiction as a disorder.
Totally. Hmm.
There's a much more societally accepted understanding that an addict, perhaps an alcoholic, is always going to have an urge or desire to drink. The recovery is that they accept that desire and don't follow through on it.
Correct.
And it is very similar with OCD.
I,
The
I, I couldn't agree more. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mindful of the time, I want to go back to writing a little, and what would be some ideas you would want to share with everyone who might think about taking that step of writing things out, getting them out of your head? I'm sure it's got to be at times cathartic for you just to put it on paper and be like, oh, I can express this, right? I don't have to just hide this and be ashamed of it and try to store it away in a little portion of my brain, hoping to never be retrieved, but to let it out there.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
I think one of the things that's really important, because I teach writing as well, and I do, now that that I have sort of carved out a space on the internet that folks with OCD can find me there, I do get a lot of writers who have OCD, and it is a particular struggle to have OCD and to write, especially with the perfectionism component that comes in. One of the things that I say is that, like, the act of writing can be the exposure too. You can you want to share, want to tell a story, have that inherent value built in, that you believe it's important to get your words on the page, and it's also allowed to be terrifying at the same time and be an exposure, because a lot of people with OCD believe if I write it down, then it's real. If I write it down, then
Yeah.
it's true.
Right.
And I've had to develop a really skillful relationship with writing, because when I would go through bouts of extreme sickness, my writing would not really make sense, and it would sort of only be comprised of my quote unquote secrets, my deepest and scariest intrusive thoughts. And I believed, of course, that now that it was in writing, I was manifesting those thoughts, blah blah blah, the whole thing. Anybody who has that sort of particular manifestation obsession that sort of fits into this spirituality theme will get what I'm talking about. I think so. The exposure element is there. That's not necessarily going to go away, but great, you've done your homework. Awesome. It's like, oh, I'm writing, and I like to write, and I want to write, and I want to tell my story, and I have to do my ERP homework. Great. Like, there you go. There's one assignment that
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving you. And I think, so I have a writing mentor, and
Oh, yeah, cool.
yeah, her name's Nancy. She talks a lot about narrative medicine, this idea that writing is not only cathartic, but there are some sort of, or not sort of, there are some scientific studies that show that trauma, writing about trauma relieves some of the symptoms of stress that come from that trauma.
Sure.
And I believe that without a shadow of a doubt, because I look at my life and my career, and every time I have finally put pen to the page and written about something that I swore I would never write about, it has led me to so much more self-love and acceptance, and such a connective tissue to finding community. I swore I'd never write about being gay. I swore I'd never write about sexual orientation OCD. I swore I'd never talk about relationship OCD, any of it. And anytime I ever say, and because it's Josh saying that, Josh is saying, no, you cannot write about that. But me, Haley, wise mind, knows that writing is a balm. It's medicine, and it's healing. And it can be an exposure at the same time. So I think that's what I think about it.
That's fantastic. I too love pen to paper. I find it to be very good, and it's something that I often encourage the people I'm working with to do is find a way to express yourself. If it's movement or writing or playing an instrument, or go out and play a sport or something, but sitting around thinking has never been a great thing for people with OCD.
No, it hasn't. And unless you're trying to be a great philosopher, I don't think it's really the best hobby.
Yeah. And even the best philosophers, we don't say, would you like to be a better philosopher? Here's some OCD.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't prescribe that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd lose my license if that's the case.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I want to give you the floor just to take a few minutes and share, just words of wisdom or encouragement to the people who are watching, and what can they take away from you today?
Yes. I would love to say to anyone listening who is sort of maybe one foot out the door, unsure if any of this applies to them, because they're thoughts and uh, compulsions are real with a capital R, and that help is not possible for you, and that you're condemned to this life of suffering, you are not the exception to feeling better. You are not the exception to feeling better. Your thoughts are none of your business, and that recovery is possible. And it's cliche, but it's true. You are really, really not alone.
Yeah. Well, Haley, thank you so much for being here, and tell people where they can find you and some of your work.
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram, Haley Jakobson. Every Wednesday, I do an advice column on my stories where people write in and ask me about lots of topics. One of those is OCD. And look out for CAVEGIRL out next year. My novel, Old Enough, is in all of the bookstores near you. And if you're interested in taking a writing class with me, you can sign up for my newsletter, which is at the link in my Instagram bio.
Fantastic. Well, Haley Jakobson, thank you for being with us today. I do appreciate it. And it's so fun to talk to people who are just so open and honest about their experiences. It helps to destroy the stigma that is out there. And that's important.
Yeah. And thank you for having me. Again, this is my ERP therapist is going to be so proud of me and this podcast, because Haley 5 years ago would have never thought that I could sit down to do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And thank you, Jessica, for the work you do with Haley.
Thanks, Jessica.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you all also for watching today on the Get to Know OCD podcast. If you're looking for help for OCD or related conditions and you want great expertly trained therapists who do wonderful teletherapy, go to NOCD.com. That's NOCD.com. And if you like what you heard today, you can get more of the Get to Know OCD podcast on our NOCD YouTube channel or anywhere where we may find great podcasts. So check us out. We'll talk to you soon.